Oh, by the way, did you watch that anime I told you about? Oh, that. Yeah. I watched the first episode. Oh, cool. Nice. What'd you think? Honestly, I wasn't that into it. It wasn't really my thing, to be honest. What? So you stopped after one episode? No, dude. 3-episode rule. What? What is that? You know, it's the thing where you have to watch at least 3 episodes of a show before you drop it. I don't know. I really wasn't that into it. I don't know if 2 more episodes is really going to change my mind. Oh, dude, come on. You have to watch it, man. You have to. Dude, you have to watch up to episode 3. Come on, 3-episode rule. 3-episode rule. Come on, just 3 episodes.
When is it okay to drop a show? That is the big question of this video. Okay, let's get this out of the way first. The answer is not 3 episodes. That's just fucking stupid. Sure, it can work sometimes as a decent litmus test, especially since most shows these days are single cours, so that means 3 out of like 12 episodes can be a decent trial sometimes. But even so, it's not a good universal rule to apply to everything. Because different shows have different lengths, different pacing, different third thing that I haven't thought of yet, but you get the point. So obviously the real answer to the big question is, it depends.
Wow, what a great video. I'm so glad I watched that video. Anyway, back to what I was doing before.
Okay, we can do a bit better than that. I pretty much like to think of it like there's 2 philosophies, which makes it sound a little too serious for an anime video, so we're gonna call it 2 guys. Guy 1 says that every show has its own unique number of episodes that you should watch before considering if you want to drop it or not. But generally speaking, the longer a show is, the more likely that you'll want to watch more episodes before making your decision. So that's where you get the common takes, you know, One Piece, watch until the Arlong Park arc, Naruto, watch the Chunin exams, Bleach, Soul Society arc, and Hamtaro when they meet Skyham, whose dream is to cross the sky. You probably noticed, and are very unsurprised, that I brought up long shonens, which includes Hamtaro, by the way. Each of these series has like 1,000,000 episodes, and it's honestly very unlikely that the first 3 are going to contain any huge mind-blowing moments that are going to make you fall in love with the show. And for these long shonen series, that can be a crazy commitment of your time. Like, I remember absolutely hating Black Clover when I was watching it at the start, and it took something like 30 episodes before I was even convinced that it was worth it. So if we consider an episode to be 23 minutes long, because skipping the Black Clover openings is a felony, that comes out to 690 minutes or 11.5 hours of watching this fucking show before I even thought it was okay. Here are some things that take less time than that. Getting a good night's sleep, getting certified for CPR, flying to Egypt, or watching 2 entire 12-episode long anime, followed by watching the entire Barbie movie, and then taking a 23-minute long shit. So yeah, it's a long time. Okay, moving away from the long shonens, let's look at some more examples from shorter shows. Steins Gate. Pretty classic example of a show that changes drastically in plot and tone partway through the series, and a lot of people will tell you that if you're not having a good time with it at the start, to wait until that shift happens. On the other side of things, there's also plenty of shows where you honestly really only need 1 episode. These are often simple and easy recommendations because it's only like 20 minutes of your time, and if you don't like what you see, you probably won't like the rest either. A lot of simpler, low-stakes shows from genres like comedy, slice of life, and cute girls doing cute things pretty much tell you exactly what you're gonna get from the show from the first episode alone. Obviously, this is aside from the fact that you'll still get some big moments here and there, but more or less I'd argue that the show's probably not going to deviate very heavily from what you saw at the start. So these are shows like K-On!, Konosuba, Yuru Camp, Sleepy Princess, which I always have to shout out because it's my avatar. These are great 1-episode trial shows. If you don't like the beginning, you're probably not going to change your mind because they do this one really funny joke in season 2, episode 8. save your time. But it's not just the slice of life comedy shows either. There's even shows that are more complex or action-packed, where episode 1 also happens to be a great representation, where they have an incredibly enticing premise and hook all contained and compacted within the first 20 minutes. They don't need to show you everything right away, but what they do tease through episode 1 should make you go, Link Click is a great example of this. Same thing with Psycho Pass and ODDTAXI. And I noticed a bit of a pattern with these shows in particular, and how they form great single episode trials. These 3 shows that I just named are shows where the premise and plot elements introduced at the beginning offer a lot of mystery and questions for the viewer right off the bat. Link Click and Psycho Pass have really unique and interesting premises, namely the whole photograph-based time travel thing, and the Dominator, which that name has aged very strangely. But in both cases, episode 1 shows you what's capable in a story about this thing or that thing. You're seeing some of the potential. And because of that, you're like, wow, that's an interesting premise. There's so many things you could probably do with this idea, and I want to see where it's gonna go. The show is letting you imagine what's possible in the later episodes, and that idea that is planning in your head is basically your indicator for whether you'd find this show worth your time or not. Because if you don't really give a fuck about the moral and the psychological implications of a gun named after a sex thing, after being shown clips of it turning people into jelly, then hey, I don't know if there's anything that could convince you to watch the rest of this show. ODDTAXI does this as well. Just swap out the sci-fi and the time travel shit for a good old-fashioned mystery with a really interesting method of storytelling. The same idea applies here. You get shown just enough in the first episode that you're supposed to be really curious about what's coming next. And if it doesn't work by then it doesn't work, and it's probably not for you. But yeah, back to the original subject. Every single show I've mentioned so far is one where I would not recommend doing the 3 episode rule. Therefore, yeah, this rule fucking sucks. But hang on, did you forget? There's a second guy. Did you forget about him? Don't tell me you forgot about Guy 2. To recap, Guy 1 says that each show has its own unique number of episodes that effectively acts as the show's teaser, where you can get a good idea for whether you want to continue watching or not. But Guy 2 says, drop the show whenever the fuck you want. You can drop it at episode 3. You can drop it at episode 300. You can even drop that shit after 30 seconds if the vibes weren't quite right for you. Now, obviously, Guy 1's whole every show has its own unique number thing is very subjective. I think the shows that I've talked about so far are the easy examples. But let's look at, say, Kaguya. What's the number? First episode, because it's a rom-com? Maybe, but I've heard lots of people say that the jokes weren't really hitting for them at the start, but it got better later. So how much later? Episode 5? 10? Season 2, Season 3, everyone has a different answer. I personally really liked it from the start, so for me, it's episode 1. But it's easy to understand how others might not agree. So how do you deal with this much subjectivity? You just kind of have to accept it, which is tricky, because Guy 2 is the one who will get people riled up, especially if they're really into the show. Like, really into the show. Because if your friend is a Deku Todoroki shipper for life, they will demand that you watch My Hero up to season 2, episode whatever, after they do their cube explosion fight and become very close friends. Ooh. Let's take a look at Steins Gate again. We know some crazy shit happens after episode. We know it'll take quite a while before getting there, and that the stuff before is a bit more slice of life-y, a bit slower, you know how it goes. I personally loved all of it, but not everyone's gonna be that way. So if your friend is watching it and is bored to tears by the beginning, Guy 1 says, stick it out until episode because the show will completely change once it gets there. But on the other hand, is nearly half of the show. That's a lot! Don't say it's not a lot! It's a lot. I'd argue that the appeal of a show is not just the big moments. Build-up is just as important too. A lot of the time, the huge story beats won't hit nearly as hard if you're not also invested in the stuff that came before. Like with big character moments or reveals that depend on knowing like 300 pages of a backstory for a particular character. So when that big moment comes, a viewer who didn't give a shit about anything before is not gonna suddenly change their mind and give a shit now. Another thing is that the early episodes' tone and atmosphere are also really important aspects of a lot of shows that can't be ignored. One Piece in episode 1000, at its core, is still more or less just as goofy and silly, if not more goofy and silly, compared to the first arc. And to a ton of people, that's one of the things that makes the series really enjoyable. But to others, going through all of that would be absolute hell. even if there are a lot of really great moments on the way there. Same goes for a more serious show like Fate Zero or a quieter show like Yuru Camp. It doesn't have to matter much if there's a particular moment or a big scene that happens that you really want your friend's reaction to. If they don't enjoy the tone of the show from episode 1, that might not ever really change. So if you have a friend who doesn't like anime with cute girls doing cute things, please don't say, oh, but you have to watch Bocchi the Rock. I promise it's different from the other ones. It'll change your mind. Episode 8 has this amazing performance. Please, bro, please, come on, bro, come on. The biggest point here is basically people tend to enforce these, oh, you have to watch up to episode X or episode Y things on their friends because they themselves love the moments of the show that had a huge impact on them personally, and they want to see other people react to that to get some kind of validation out of it. And this is a really understandable thing to do. Everyone does it, myself included. But I think it's also important to not force it, especially if you know that there's going to be a bunch of stuff that they're going to have to tolerate to get to the part that you're thinking of. Basically, I think it'd be good if people learn to let go just a little bit of their own biases and personal experiences when you're recommending a show to other people. I think that everyone should have a chance to develop their own experience with a show, and if your friend's not enjoying your favorite show as much as you did, that should be okay. And the same thing goes for if you're the one watching. If you're not really enjoying something, even if you know it's like a super popular show, or if your friend really wants you to like it, it's totally fine if it's just not your thing. Except Vinland Saga. What the fuck is wrong with you if you didn't like season 2? What the fuck is wrong with you?